It was 3 in the morning when she woke for the 7th time that month. It wasn't the alarm. It wasn't a noise. It was something different. Something calling her to pray at that exact hour. What she didn't know yet was that this simple practice would save her life 7 times. Have you ever felt something protecting you during the darkest moments? Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with the feeling that you need to pray? If so, you're not alone. And if not, perhaps after this story, you'll start paying more attention to those signals. This is the true story of Emily Carter, an ordinary woman who discovered an extraordinary secret, a secret that completely changed her relationship with the spiritual world. And that could change yours too. But before I tell you what happened to her, I need to warn you, this story isn't for everyone. If you believe that everything in life has a scientific explanation, you might feel uncomfortable. If you think the spiritual world doesn't exist, you might want to stop here. Because what I'm about to share with you goes beyond logic. It goes beyond what our eyes can see. And it goes beyond what our minds can fully comprehend. Emily was a nurse. She worked the night shift at a hospital in New York City. She knew the silence of the early mornings well. She knew the feeling of being awake when the world sleeps. But she had never experienced anything like this. It all started on a Tuesday in March. She was sleeping soundly when something woke her at 3 in the morning. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a nightmare. It was an inner voice that simply said, "Pray now." She got up confused. She looked at the clock. Exactly 3 o'clock. She knelt beside the bed and began to pray. She didn't know why. She didn't know what she was praying for. She just prayed. 15 minutes later, she went back to sleep. She thought it had been just an isolated incident, a strange moment that would soon be forgotten. How wrong she was. The following night, it happened again. 3 in the morning, the same inner voice, the same call to pray. This time, she hesitated. Was she going crazy? Was it just work stress? But something inside her insisted. Something stronger than her rational mind. She got up again and prayed. And she continued praying for another 20 minutes. It was on the 3rd night that she realized there was a pattern. Always at 3 o'clock. Always the same inner call. Always the same feeling of urgency. Emily was a woman of faith, but she wasn't a fanatic. She went to church on Sundays. She prayed before meals. But she had never experienced anything so direct, so specific, so supernatural. On the 4th night, she decided she was going to ignore the call. When she woke up at 3 in the morning, she stayed in bed. She squeezed her eyes shut and tried to go back to sleep. But she couldn't. There was an unease in the air, a feeling that something was wrong. After 15 minutes of tossing and turning, she gave in. She got up and prayed, and immediately felt a deep peace wash over her. That's when she understood that it wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't stress. It wasn't imagination. It was a call. A week later, Emily was returning from work when she noticed a man following her. It was 5 in the morning. The streets were deserted. She quickened her pace, but he did too. She quickly turned a corner and hid behind a car. The man walked right past, looking for her. She waited 5 minutes, and only then came out of hiding. She arrived home trembling. That same night at 3 in the morning, she woke up again. But this time, the prayer was different, more intense, more urgent, and for the first time, she clearly understood what she was praying for. She was asking for protection. 2 days later, she found out that 3 women had been attacked on that same street at the same time she used to pass by. But no attack happened on the day she was followed, on the day she prayed more intensely. Coincidence? Perhaps. But Emily began to suspect that something bigger was happening. The second attack came in a way she never imagined. Emily was at home, preparing lunch, when a gas leak started in her kitchen. She didn't notice immediately. The smell was faint, almost imperceptible. It was only when she was lighting the stove that she realized the danger. If she had lit that match, her house would have exploded, and she with it. But something made her hesitate. an inner voice that said, "Stop, don't light it." She stopped. She smelled more carefully and discovered the leak. That night, at 3 a.m, she prayed with a gratitude she had never felt before, and for the first time she was absolutely certain that her prayers were being heard and answered. The third attack was even more subtle. Emily was driving to work when she had a sudden urge to change routes. For no apparent reason, she took a completely different path, a longer and more complicated path. 2 hours later, she learned that a serious accident had occurred on the route she always took, exactly at the time she would have been passing by. 3 cars involved. 2 people dead? She would have been the third. That night, when she woke up at 3 a.m, she didn't just pray. She cried. She cried with gratitude. She cried with relief. And she cried with understanding. She finally understood that her 3 o'clock prayers weren't just prayers. They were a shield, a protection, a direct communication with something greater than herself. But the attacks didn't stop. The fourth was the most frightening of all. Emily was asleep when she woke up with a terrible feeling. It wasn't 3 a.m. yet. It was 1 a.m. But she felt something was wrong in the house. Very wrong. She got up and walked through the house. Everything seemed normal, but the feeling of danger persisted. She checked all the doors, all the windows. Everything was locked. It was when she reached the kitchen that she saw it. The gas tap was open. Not completely, but enough for the gas to be leaking slowly into the room. She hadn't used the stove that day. She hadn't touched the tap. Someone or something had opened that tap. But who? And why? She turned off the tap immediately and opened all the windows. Then she stayed awake until 3 a.m. And when the time came, she prayed like she had never prayed before. This time, she didn't just ask for protection. She asked for understanding. She wanted to know what was happening. She wanted to know why she was being attacked. And she wanted to know how to protect herself. The answer came in a way she didn't expect. The next day, Emily received an unexpected visit from her Aunt Clara, an elderly woman, always known in the family for her visions and her connection to the spiritual world. Aunt Clara looked at Emily Carter and said, "You're under attack, aren't you?" It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Emily froze. How did she know? "I know because I'm seeing it," Aunt Clara said. "There's a shadow around you, a shadow that isn't yours. And there's also a light, a very strong light protecting you." Aunt Clara explained that Emily had been chosen for something, that her 3 a.m. prayers weren't a coincidence. They were a divine calling, a calling to become an intercessor, someone who prays for the protection of others. "But why me?" Emily asked. "Because you have a pure heart," Aunt Clara replied, "and because you have enough faith to obey without question. Not everyone is capable of that." Aunt Clara then explained something that completely changed Emily's perspective on what was happening. 3 a.m. isn't just any time, she said. It's the hour when the veil between worlds is thinnest. It's the hour when our prayers have the most power. And it's also the hour when spiritual attacks are most intense. Someone or something knows you're praying at this hour, and they don't like it. That's why they're trying to attack you. To make you stop praying, to make you give up this practice. Emily felt a chill. But who would it be? That doesn't matter right now, Aunt Clara said. What matters is that you keep praying, and that you understand that each of your prayers is protecting not only you, but other people as well. That night, when Emily woke up at 3 a.m., she prayed with a completely new purpose. She didn't just pray for her protection. She prayed for the protection of her family, her neighbors, people she didn't even know. And for the first time since it all began, she felt she wasn't alone in her prayers. It was as if there were other voices praying along with her, other people, in other places, praying at the same time. The fifth attack came a week later, and it was the most direct of all. Emily was leaving home for work when a man approached her. He said he was lost and asked for directions. She stopped to help, as she always did. But when she got closer to show him the way, He grabbed her. He tried to drag her into a dark alley. She screamed, but there was no one nearby to hear. That's when something inexplicable happened. An invisible force pushed the man away from her. He fell to the ground with such force that he was stunned. Emily took the opportunity to run. When she looked back, the man had disappeared, as if he had never been there. That night, she prayed with an intensity that even scared her, and for the first time she heard a clear answer to her prayers. Not with words, but with a deep feeling that she was being cared for, that she was being protected by something far more powerful than she could imagine. The sixth attack was different from all the others. It wasn't physical, it was spiritual. Emily began to have terrible nightmares. Every night she dreamed of shadows trying to enter her house, of voices whispering her name, of a feeling of being constantly watched. The nightmares were so real that she woke up sweating. She woke up afraid to go back to sleep. But the strangest thing is that she always woke up at 3 a.m., even in the middle of the worst nightmares. She woke up at exactly that time, and when she prayed, the nightmares stopped immediately. That's when she understood that the nightmares weren't just dreams. They were attempts to attack her during sleep, attempts to break her faith, to make her give up her prayers. But each time she prayed, the attacks became weaker, as if her faith were creating an increasingly strong barrier around her. The seventh and final attack was the most subtle and the most dangerous of all. Emily was going through a very difficult time in her life. She had lost her job. She was having financial problems. She had a falling out with some family members. Slowly, she began to doubt her prayers. She began to think that maybe it was all just imagination, that maybe she was going crazy, that maybe it was better to stop with that madness of 3 a.m. For 3 nights in a row, she didn't pray. When she woke up at 3 a.m., she stayed in bed. She told herself she needed a normal life, that she needed to stop believing in fantasies. It was on the 3rd night, without praying, that everything changed. Emily woke up at 3 a.m., but this time it wasn't a call to pray. It was a cry for help, not hers, but from someone very close. She had a clear vision of her younger brother, Robert, in danger. He was in a car accident. He was losing a lot of blood. He was dying. Without hesitation, she got up and prayed. She prayed with more intensity than ever before. She prayed for Robert's life. She prayed that he would be saved. The next day, she received a call from the hospital. Robert had been in a serious accident in the early morning, exactly at 3 a.m., but by an inexplicable miracle he had survived. The doctors couldn't explain how. It was at that moment that Emily completely understood what was happening. Her 3 a.m. prayers weren't just for her protection. They were for the protection of everyone around her. And when she stopped praying, she not only put herself in danger, she put other people in danger too. She never doubted again. She never stopped praying at 3 a.m., and she was never attacked again. Emily discovered that there was something very special about 3 a.m., something that few people know, something that can completely change your relationship with the spiritual world. But why exactly 3 a.m.? Why not 2 or 4? Why not noon or 6 p.m.? The answer lies in something Aunt Clara had mentioned, but that Emily only fully understood after the 7th attack. 3 a.m. is known in many spiritual traditions as the Holy Hour. It's the time when Jesus Christ died on the cross. It's the time when the veil of the temple was torn. It's the time when the barrier between heaven and earth became thinner. But it's also the time when the forces of darkness are most active. That's why many people wake up with nightmares at this time. That's why many people feel an inexplicable spiritual oppression at 3 a.m. It's as if there's a battle going on at that moment. A battle between light and darkness, between protection and attack, between faith and fear. And Emily had been called to participate in this battle on the side of light. But there was still much she needed to learn, and so much she needed to teach others. After the 7th attack, Emily Carter's life changed completely. She not only continued praying at 3 in the morning, She began to study this hour deeply. She began to research what other people around the world knew about it, and what she discovered left her even more impressed. In various parts of the world, people naturally woke up at 3 a.m. to pray, without knowing each other, without prior arrangement, as if there were a universal calling happening at that moment. In South Korea, there were entire churches that gathered at 3 a.m. to pray for the nation. In Africa, traditional healers said that this was the moment of greatest spiritual power. In Brazil, faith healers said that 3 a.m. was the time to break curses. But why was this time so special? Why did people all over the world, without knowing each other, feel this same calling? The answer lay in the very nature of spiritual time. Emily discovered that spiritual time doesn't work like physical time. In the physical world, 3 a.m. is just a moment like any other. But in the spiritual world, 3 a.m. is a portal between dimensions, a moment when our prayers have direct access to heaven, a moment when our spiritual protection can be renewed and strengthened. But it's also the time when spiritual attacks are most intense, because the forces of darkness know the power of this hour, and they try to prevent people from praying in it. Emily began to teach other people about this discovery. She started small. First her family, then some close friends, then co-workers, and something incredible began to happen. All the people who started praying at 3 a.m. began to experience spiritual protection. They began to be free from attacks. They began to have their lives transformed. But not everyone believed. Not everyone wanted to try. And Emily learned that this practice wasn't for everyone. It was only for those who had enough faith to believe in the power of prayer. One day, Emily received a visit from a desperate woman. Carla had lost 3 children in strange accidents. Accidents that didn't make sense. Accidents that seemed to have been caused by something supernatural. Carla had heard about Emily's story and wanted to know if she could help, if her prayers could protect the only child she had left. Emily explained to Carla about the 3 a.m. prayers. She explained about spiritual protection. She explained about the battle that takes place at that hour. Carla decided to try, out of desperation, out of love for her son, because she had nothing left to lose. On the first night, Carla woke up at 3 a.m. and prayed. She didn't know exactly how to do it. She didn't have much experience with long prayers, but she prayed with her heart. On the second night, she prayed again, and she felt a peace she hadn't felt in months. On the third night, she had a vision. She saw her 3 dead children. They were fine. They were at peace, and they were asking her to protect the brother who had remained. From that night on, Carla never lost faith again, and she never lost another child. The boy, who had previously been sickly and had constant accidents, came to have perfect health. He came to be protected from all dangers. He came to have a normal and happy life. Carla became one of the greatest advocates of the 3 a.m. prayers, and she began to teach other desperate mothers about this practice. Soon there was a small group of women who gathered spiritually at 3 a.m, each in her own home, but all praying at the same time, all asking for protection for their families. And the results were impressive. Diseases being cured, accidents being avoided, financial problems being solved, relationships being restored. But there was still a greater secret that Emily needed to discover. A secret about the specific power of 3 in the morning that would change everything. The discovery came through a very old priest named Father Miguel. He had dedicated his entire life to the study of Christian spirituality. And when he heard about Emily's story, he wanted to talk to her. Father Miguel explained that 3 in the morning had a direct connection with the death of Jesus Christ. But not only that, they had a connection with the resurrection as well. Jesus died at 3 in the afternoon, he said, but his resurrection began to be prepared at 3 in the morning, 12 hours later. It is the moment when death began to be overcome. It is the moment when eternal life began to manifest itself. That's why the 3 in the morning prayers have so much power, the priest continued, because they connect with the exact moment when life overcame death, the moment when light overcame darkness, the moment when love overcame fear. Emily was impressed with this revelation. Finally, she understood why her prayers had so much power at that specific time. But Father Miguel wasn't finished. He still had more secrets to reveal. "There is a specific prayer for 3 in the morning," he said. "A prayer that was revealed by Our Lady in various apparitions around the world. A prayer that has the power to break any spiritual attack." He taught the prayer to Emily. It was simple, but powerful. It was short, but deep. It was easy to memorize, but hard to forget. Emily began to use this specific prayer in her 3 in the morning prayers, and the power of protection increased even more. It was as if she had discovered the exact frequency to connect with heaven. She taught the prayer to the group of women who prayed with her, and they all experienced the same increase in spiritual power. But the most impressive was yet to come. One night, Emily had a vision during her 3 in the morning prayers. She saw a large crowd of people around the world, all praying at the same time, all spiritually connected. She saw that it wasn't just her small group that prayed at that hour. There were thousands of people, perhaps millions, all participating in the same spiritual battle, all fighting on the side of light. And she understood that she was part of something much bigger. She was part of a spiritual army, an army of intercessors who prayed for the protection of the entire world. From that vision, Emily never felt alone in her prayers again. She knew she was connected with people all over the world. She knew that her individual prayer was part of a powerful collective prayer, and the results of this collective prayer began to manifest in surprising ways. The city where Emily lived began to have less violent crime, fewer traffic accidents, fewer cases of depression and suicide. It was as if an invisible shield had been placed over the entire region. Other 3 a.m. prayer groups began to emerge in neighboring towns. And in every place where such a group existed, violence rates decreased, peace increased, spiritual protection spread. Emily Carter realized her prayers weren't just protecting her and her family. They were protecting the entire community around them, protecting people who didn't even know they were being protected. But not everyone was happy with these changes. Some people began to verbally attack Emily, saying she was spreading religious fanaticism, saying she was deceiving vulnerable people. Even some family members began to criticize her, saying she was overdoing it, that she was becoming obsessed with these prayers. For a moment, Emily doubted again. Was she really doing the right thing? Was she overreacting? Would it be better to stop and have a normal life? It was in this moment of doubt that something happened that definitively confirmed her mission. Emily received a letter from a woman in another country. The woman said she had dreamed of her. In the dream, Emily was teaching about the 3 a.m. prayers. The woman woke up, searched the internet, and discovered that Emily Carter really existed. The woman said she started praying at 3 a.m. after the dream, and that her life had completely changed. She had been cured of a serious illness. Her marriage had been restored. Her children had stopped using drugs. In the following days, Emily received more similar letters from people in different countries, people who had dreamed of her, people who had learned about the 3 a.m. prayers through dreams or visions. She realized that her mission had expanded beyond what she could have imagined. It wasn't just local, it was global. It wasn't just for a few people, it was for everyone who had enough faith to try. Today, 15 years later, Emily Carter continues to pray at 3 a.m. She has never missed a single day. She has never again been spiritually attacked, and she has never again doubted the power of this practice. She founded an international organization of 3 a.m. prayer groups. There are groups in over 50 countries, thousands of people praying simultaneously every night. And the results continue to be impressive. Families being protected, diseases being cured, problems being solved, spiritual attacks being broken. But most importantly, people discovering that they are not alone in this life, that there is protection available, that there is a higher power that cares for them. Emily always says that anyone can start this practice. You don't have to be special. You don't have to have supernatural gifts. You don't have to be a saint. You just need to have faith and the courage to wake up at 3 a.m. and pray. She teaches that the prayer doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to follow any specific script. It just needs to come from the heart. It can be a prayer of protection. It can be a prayer of gratitude. It can be a prayer of request. It can simply be a moment of connection with the sacred. The important thing is consistency. It's about waking up every night at 3 a.m. It's about maintaining this practice regardless of how you feel. It's about trusting that your prayers are being heard and answered. Emily also teaches about the signs that the prayers are working. They aren't always obvious signs. Sometimes they're subtle, but they are always present. You may start having more peaceful dreams. You may start feeling more protected during the day. You may start avoiding accidents without realizing it. You may start solving problems more easily. Sometimes protection comes through other people. Someone who shows up at the right time. Someone who gives important advice. Someone who offers an unexpected opportunity. Sometimes protection comes through changes of plans. You miss a flight and then discover that the flight was delayed. You change routes and then discover there was an accident on the original route. You give up on something and then discover it would have been harmful. The secret is to start paying attention to these signs, to begin to recognize the invisible hand that protects you, to begin to thank for the protection you receive without realizing it. Emily always ends her talks with the same advice. Don't wait until you're in danger to start praying. Start now. Start today, because spiritual protection doesn't work like a fire extinguisher that you only use in an emergency. It works like a shield that you always carry with you. And remember, she continues, you're not just praying for yourself. You're praying for your family, for your neighbors, for your city, for your country, for people you don't even know, but who also need protection. Your 3 a.m. prayers can save lives. They can change destinies. They can break curses. They can open paths. They can bring healing. They can bring peace. But you'll only discover this if you try. If you have the courage to wake up tomorrow at 3 a.m. and pray. If you have enough faith to believe that your prayers matter. Emily's story teaches us something very powerful. It teaches us that each of us has access to supernatural protection. It teaches us that we are not at the mercy of circumstances. It teaches us that we can actively participate in our own spiritual protection. But it also teaches us that this protection is not automatic. It needs to be sought. It needs to be cultivated. It needs to be maintained through constant prayer. 3 a.m. is not just a time on the clock. It's an invitation to participate in the battle between light and darkness, an invitation to connect with the power that moves the universe, an invitation to discover that you are more protected than you imagine. The question remains, will you accept this invitation? Will you have the courage to wake up tomorrow at 3 a.m. and discover for yourself the power of this practice? Will you trust that there is protection available to you, waiting only for you to seek it? Or will you continue to live as if you were alone in this world, without protection, without support, without the certainty that someone cares for you? The choice is yours. The protection is available. The invitation has been made. Emily made her choice 15 years ago, and she has never regretted it. Perhaps it's time for you to make yours.